As more and more details come out, we have to ask ourselves the question, what did the FBI know, and when did they know it, and why didn't they tell us? So stick with me, folks, and I'll be right back. Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and so much is coming out about everything that we need to go over some of it. So I'm going to start out just real quick with this quote from President Reagan's speech here. And if you haven't heard this speech, he wasn't president at the time, but he was stumping for Barry Goldwater. And I really think you need to hear the whole speech, but I'm not going to play that. I'll leave the link down below and you can watch it at your leisure, but it is a very good speech. And you know, the man could have made it today because so much of what he's talking about is exactly what we're encountering nowadays. And you can see that the Democrats were working on all of this even back then. They just weren't as crazy about it. So here we go.
You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools. And our honored dead, who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis, didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. There is a point beyond which they must not advance.
You've heard it many times before, I'm sure, but we need to remember that. And right now, that's the situation we're in, and this is what has happened in this week, actually, because of the censorship that's gone on and everything. So remember that. We need to stand up and say, this is a line we will not cross. So the time has come to stand up and to make our voices known, to come together and to say, this is not right. We're not going to do this. And our country is going to be returned to we the people. So that's why we need to get out there and vote on November 3rd or even before, whenever you get a chance. We need to get that done because we can't allow this type of thing to go on. And again, I encourage you to watch the whole thing if you haven't seen it before, but you probably have heard snippets of it because it's a very good speech all the way through. Anyway, here is just a piece of information you might find interesting. If you go here, you can find out when absentee and mail-in ballot processing and counting can begin in different states, because the law is not the same for any. Like here in Alabama, the absentee mail ballot processing can begin on noon on Election Day, and the counting can begin after the polls close on Election Day. So that's a little bit different than Alaska here, which says 7 days before the election, they can start processing the ballots, but they can't start counting them until 8 p.m. on Election Day. So it has all the states. You can go through and you can find yours and you can find out what's going on. Like, see, Colorado here, they start processing them upon receipt, and then they can start counting 15 days before Election Day. So that's very interesting. They're not supposed to release the vote count until after 7 p.m. on Election Day, but I thought that was very interesting to look through here. And look at this one. Florida says releasing the results early is a felony. Wow, isn't that something? But again, 7 a.m., 22 days before the election, they can already start releasing early results. So, you look through this and you see what it is. It's different every time. And here in Indiana, processing may not begin before Election Day. Initial signature review may be conducted before Election Day, because they have to check the signatures. They can do that. But the vote count no later than noon on Election Day or immediately after the electronic poll books used at each polling place or vote center have been updated to indicate the county received the absentee ballot. So they can't really start counting until then. This is why, if they have a lot of absentee ballots or a lot of mail-in ballots, it takes longer because they can't start until Election Day, although some states do have earlier that they can. Personally, I think no results should be revealed at all until, the voting is closed. Because once the voting is closed in all of the different districts, it can't affect the election. But, if you have the early results from the East Coast states and people see those, it could encourage or discourage certain voters in like the Western states. So, personally, I think that nobody's votes should be counted until they can all be released at the same time. But, that's my personal preference. Anyway, let's go on. This is really important. Okay, the video Project Veritas put out about Ilhan Omar and all the ballot harvesting and the ties she has to that. This is one of the things that is getting a lot of flack right now. And it was fact-checked on Facebook. If you shared the link to that video, it was fact-checked on Facebook saying that USA Today had fact-checked it and had said certain claims were not true. And it's like there wasn't any documentation for it. And I even had somebody make a comment on this channel. It's like, that has no, it's bogus. It has no validity. That's not research. And it's like, yeah, it has all the information there. I don't know what else they would want. You see the ballots, and in Minnesota law, according to it, you can't have more than 3 ballots. This guy had a whole dashboard full of them. And the other guy had, a big bunch of them in his hand. You can't deny that. And they were ballots. You could see that they were ballots. So I'm not sure what else they want. Oh, they were complaining about the date. They said that the date was wrong or something, or no, the date wasn't available, and it's right there on the video. So they're crazy when they're making these claims. They have documentation, and Project Veritas has gone to court several times, and they've won all their cases. So according to James O'Keefe here, he says that if USA Today does not retract their fact check, then they're going to sue them. So he does give them a time limit, and he says, we need a retraction. You need to say that what you posted about our video is a lie. And if they don't, they're going to sue. And I'm pretty sure they're going to win because they definitely have a case. Everything you need to see is there. It is documented. It's in those videos. So they mention Omar. The guy that commented on my post on my video is like, there's no connection to Omar. It's like, hello, they mentioned her all throughout the thing, that they were working, that the Omar machine basically kind of had control of that area and the Somali vote there, which was pretty good size. So it was pretty obvious to me. I don't know. I guess they weren't watching the same video I was, or they didn't watch it and they just went off on, the kinds of things maybe that people hear and the left-wing media tries to put out there, and they don't fact-check it for themselves. So anyway, that's the case with this. This is he just basically says, here's the situation. He reads a quote from 1984, very apropos, but then a lot of 1984 these days seems to be pretty apropos. But I'll leave the link to this down below, and you can watch the video. All right, Richard Grenell said, he had this post up, and he says, today an ABC reporter texted me for help on a story. This was my response. Sorry, I've given up on ABC News after the former Democrat press secretary posing as an ABC reporter failed to ask Joe Biden about the scandal developing about his son and big tech censoring it. I've determined it isn't worth the time to even try with ABC. Well, that's pretty much the situation, too. And yes, Biden's ABC Townhall questioners, not just the moderator, but the questioners include former Obama speechwriter, wife of former Pennsylvania Democrat candidate. So, yeah, those are objective people. I think what they should do, if they're going to have these town hall things, that Trump ought to be able to pick the people to ask Biden questions, and Biden ought to get a chance to pick the people to ask Trump questions. I think that would be perfectly fair. You know, I wouldn't mind having controversial questions or hard-hitting questions or whatever, as long as it's equal on both sides. But that's not what's been happening, and we all know that, right? That's not the way it usually is. But anyway, I'll leave the links to these down below. You can read them for yourself. But yeah, they're exposing the questioners. And then, of course, Suvannah Guthrie, who did Trump's town hall, her husband is a former Democratic political aide. So I thought I'd let you know that too. So yeah, I mean, you just can't get somebody who's fair. You know, you really can't. And especially in this climate, I think probably the biggest part of it would be if you had, you know, if you could just swap them, it would be very interesting. So I thought it was interesting that Newsweek pointed this out. So I just, you know, even Newsweek knows that they're not fair. Well, let's get into the topic at hand, which really has to do with the FBI eventually. But right now, let's build up to it. First of all, there are more articles out there. More of the emails are starting to come out, and they are now apparent. They're showing apparent negotiations with Chinese energy firm on deals that would be, quote, interesting to me and my family. And so you can go through here, and of course there was 10 held by H for the big guy, and we're going to kind of assume that H is Hunter and the big guy is Joe. So you can go through and you can read about that. Yeah, the links are starting to come in, and the information's out there. But you really do need to go to the New York Post to get all the articles. And of course, we can't share them, because if we do, then, you know, the powers that be get very ticked at us. But we're going to talk about that too. Well, anyway, Chanel Rion says, she's from OAN, she says, just saw for myself a behind-the-scenes look at the Hunter Biden hard drive. Now remember, as I understand it, the repairman guy had a copy of the hard drive, and he sent the laptop itself to the FBI, supposedly. And the FBI didn't want it for some bizarre reason. They either didn't accept it or they didn't see any reason to hang on to it. I'm not sure which. And that's a question that we'll deal with in just a minute here. But, you know, there is this copy. Anyway, eventually it ended up with Rudy Giuliani. And so he was the one that has been putting out a lot of this stuff. And, you know, it is very interesting. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me just go with this, and then we'll get to that one. We'll get to the other things I want to say when we get there. And so she says she's seen it herself, okay? She says drugs, underage obsessions, and we all know what that means, power deals. Druggy Hunter makes Anthony Weiner's down under selfie addiction look normal. And the Biden crime family has a lot of apologizing to do. So does big tech. So she's, you know, she would be a great moderator for a debate. But, yeah, they don't want her. They'd be scared of her. They hate her so much they made her stand in the back. She's still standing in the back when they have press conferences at the White House. I think it's just despicable that they did that. So, you know, poor girl. But she's been working on something too, making like an alternative White House press organization. So that would be interesting to see, because right now the press, you know, I understand that we need a free press and everything, but there should be at least a voice from the White House, you know, having some input into who can be in this press pool. I think that they shouldn't be able to just, this White House correspondence thing shouldn't be able to control it all, because they're very biased. And, you do need a balance there when you're talking about the White House. And I can understand we don't want it to be a government propaganda outlet. I understand that. And it could very well become that. It kind of was in some ways in the Obama administration. I used to watch those press conferences, and it was just like, can you put any more lies into your press conference? So I do understand that, but there does seem to be quite a bias, an anti-Trump bias right now. And I don't think that's fair to the American people, because they aren't asking the questions we want to know. They're asking the questions their overlords have told them they have to ask. So, and they've gone along with it, obviously, but they don't look like they're being pressured. They're doing it willingly, but still, it's an agenda, and we need to not have that. All right, now this Gateway pundit says, Hunter and Joe Biden scandal takes a dark turn. FBI's top lawyer on child porn involved in case. Now, I got to tell you that with this, there's really no claim of that, although Chanel Rion says underage obsession. Okay, but the reason that this claim is there is because, let me see down here. There is a document. Here it is. This is an FBI grand jury subpoena for Hunter Biden's laptop, and there's a signature on it of that you can't see, but I guess it comes through in this picture or something. I don't know. But it says that there is this Wilson guy was described in 2012, was described by the Star Ledger, a New Jersey-based newspaper, as, quote, an FBI agent based in New Jersey who has spent nearly 5 years working full-time on child pornography. And I guess his signature is on there. So it seems to be a signature match to what was found on the December subpoena. So this was the subpoena for that, okay? So that's part of it. And it's very interesting up here. I know you hate it when I scroll. Sorry. Okay, up here it says this is between Hunter Biden and his daughter Naomi. And she says, can you put $150 in my account? It was just declined for Lyft to airport. Sorry. Okay, first of all, if I needed a lift to the airport, my parents would take me. They would have taken me. And if they couldn't, then they would not have, I wouldn't have had to say sorry to ask for money to get that. But he comes back and says, yes, I can. But Naomi, you really have to start to realize that once you are out of school, the chances of you living like your father is a billionaire when really he's given all his money away is going to be a bit of a shock. And she says, I know, I promise I'll be much better this year. Promise. Okay. It's kind of like she's having to beg him for money or anything. And he's claiming that he has no money whatsoever, which is very possible since he seemed to like to spend it on meth or crack, whichever that was. Somebody said it was a meth pipe instead of a crack pipe. But whatever the case is, those kinds of outlets, and also, as Chanel Rion said, underage obsessions. So those can eat up your money pretty fast. Well, here's what I think Jonathan Turley brings up really good points here. And he says, you got to look for these three things since all this has started coming out. And you know that Facebook and Twitter are censoring it. And probably, I don't know if this is going to be censored or not because I'm talking about it. But it's in the news so much. He talks about this story by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Silver Blaze. And it's the investigation of the disappearance of a racehorse. And the local inspector asked if there was any point to which you would wish to draw my attention. And Holmes responds to the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. When the inspector objects, the dog did nothing in the nighttime. Holmes replies That was the curious incident. Well, that's what he's saying down here. There is always something a tad curious of Washington legal scandals in what has not occurred. That is why the latest Hunter Biden scandal is so curious. So here the story breaks, and what do? Well, you don't hear things. If they are fabricated, there are 3 barks that we would have expected within hours of the release of these emails and things. Bark 1, this was not Hunter Biden's computer. The same thing, kind of the same thing, with the hack of the DNC emails. Supposedly, if they were hacked and if they were, not the DNC's emails, if they're saying they were not real, they never claimed that. Did you notice? Never once did they ever dispute the authenticity of any of those emails in the WikiLeaks files. So we know that they're authentic. That was never the claim. The claim was always, oh, they were hacked. Yeah, no, they weren't. And the most obvious response would be that this is not the computer of Hunter Biden. After all, the computer store owner, John Paul Mac Isaac, who is legally blind, said that he could not recognize the person who dropped off the laptop. So they should be saying that, right? But no, they're not. No. The response on ownership has been crickets for days. Bark 2. These were not Hunter Biden's photos or emails. Even if the campaign cannot deny that the computer was Hunter Biden's, it could deny that these incriminating pictures and emails were his. Again, crickets, because, you really couldn't. And note that if these are fabricated emails or pictures, this would be a serious federal crime and the basis for legal action. But they're not taking that. They're not doing that. And there's not a single allegation of fraud or fabrication after days of a brewing scandal. And they should be saying this is defamation. Perhaps this bark is the most telling. If these emails or pictures are fabricated, it is a clear case of defamation and other tort actions. It would seem that one of the hundreds of lawyers currently lined up by the Biden campaign would fire off an intent to sue letter. But again, nothing. So I thought it was a real good article that he put here. And he says, that is what's so curious about the Hunter Biden story. And to move from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle to Lewis Carroll, it is becoming curiouser and curiouser. Kind of going down the rabbit hole, huh? Just about what you feel like these days. Well, President Trump did say we're running against the media and bad tech. If you listen to his rally, he did a really good one, and he pretty much just didn't pull any punches. And he was talking about it. I think he's right. He says all of this is being covered up by the media and big tech. Yes, it is. They talk about freedom of speech and freedom of the press. There's no freedom of the press. The press is free when they tell the truth. When they don't tell the truth, they're not a free press. They're just a bunch of fiction writers. So, when they're covering things up, they're just covering up the reality of what the Biden family is. Well, this leads to the question by a bunch of House Republicans that just when did the FBI know about this Hunter Biden laptop? Gee, wait a minute. That subpoena for it was what? Back in December? And when was the impeachment? Yeah, about the same time. So if the FBI had this device and this information and they didn't come out with it, because remember what the impeachment was all about. They were accusing President Trump of targeting a political opponent when that's not what was happening. What was happening was President Trump was legitimately asking for an investigation into a legitimate case that had a good predicate and every reason the FBI should have been looking into it. So now you have to ask yourself, what in the world was going on in the FBI? And that's why House Republicans sent a letter to Chris Wray. Well, I'm going to play this for you because this just adds a little bit to it, and then we're going to look at the letter. Here you go.
I think it's important, however, to go back to several years ago. We've known the general shape of the Biden's corruption in Ukraine basically since 2015. The New York Times was reporting it then. The reason the press is burying it now is because the context has changed entirely. It appears that the Clintons leaked it to the New York Times to keep Joe Biden out of the 2016 primary race. They all know what's happening here. They're buried it. But the bigger problem is not just the press. The fact is we're seeing repetition of what Christopher Wray's FBI is up to. In December, as Mayor Giuliani was talking about, not only did they get word of the hard drive, but that was also when they were putting the president through an impeachment process that had to do with the Biden's corruption in Ukraine. As many of us were saying at the time, the president was absolutely correct to want to know what was going on with the Bidens in Ukraine. And now we see that the FBI, Christopher Wray's FBI, buried that. This is part of a larger cover-up.
So this is a really good little interview here with this guy. And he even has a book that was really important. But, you know, he raises the very question. They knew about it. This is so fun. It was put out by the Clinton campaign to take out one of her rivals. Well, she did the same thing. I'm telling you, folks, she was the one that originally questioned Barack Obama's citizenship. It was not the Republicans. It was the Clinton campaign. So it's funny that she puts this dirt out on her rivals, and then later on, it kind of comes back to bite the Democrats in the butt. But you have to ask yourself, why in the world, if they knew back in 2016, did they not bring it out before now? And you can say all you want that it's only the top levels of the FBI. Well, I'm kind of with Lou Dobbs on this because he's started expressing the same opinion. I'm not buying that. It's not just the upper level. It's not the 99% are good people. There are a lot of them in there that are still very much a part of the deep state. And I don't know how we can clean it, but evidently Christopher Wray is not doing the job. The perfect person would probably be Mike Flynn. And if not that, the CIA, put him in there. Wherever he needs to be cleaning out all of these bad actors that are still in our intelligence community. But that's the question. And yes, some of the Republicans did that. Andy Biggs was the one spearheading this. And he says, yesterday I led a letter to FBI Director Wray to demand answers into the allegations that the FBI had the purported Hunter Biden emails that surfaced this week. The American people deserve immediate answers to the questions I raised to Director Wray. And here's a Washington Examiner article about that. Here's the actual letter, press release that he put out. And there were today Congressman Andy Biggs, along with 18 of his House colleagues, sent a letter to FBI Director Christopher Wray raising questions about the FBI's alleged involvement in obtaining and analyzing a hard drive and laptop which purportedly had emails belonging to Hunter Biden. And here are the representatives that signed it. I couldn't find the actual, copy of the letter, like the PDF of it. But here's the letter itself, and it was put out on October 15th. Dear Director Wray, yesterday, the New York Post published an article entitled Smoking Gun Email Reveals How Hunter Biden Introduced Ukrainian Businessman to VP Dad. The article documents how a recently uncovered laptop and hard drive allegedly revealed emails to and from Hunter Biden that strongly indicated that former Vice President Joe Biden was, in fact, aware of his son's overseas dealings, which is the least of it, actually. Most concerning in the article was the allegation that the Federal Bureau of Investigation was in possession of this computer and hard drive back in December 2019. This action took place right at the end of the U.S. House of Representatives impeachment sham against President Donald J. Trump, and right before the U.S. Senate tried the case. A large portion of the president's legal defense case revolved around strong evidence that former Vice President Biden's son, Hunter, was peddling his influence to his father to land lucrative jobs overseas that he might not have otherwise been qualified for. If the FBI was, in fact, in possession of this evidence and failed to alert the White House to its existence, that would have given even more weight to the president's legal defense. This was a gross error in judgment and a severe violation of trust. The American people deserve the swift answers to these questions. Was the FBI in possession of the laptop and hard drive that was documented in the New York Post article? Did the FBI take any steps to authenticate the laptop, hard drive, and data that was uncovered? Did anyone at the FBI brief officials at the Department of Justice or at the White House about this laptop or hard drive at any point since December 2019? Why did the New York Post have the information about this laptop and hard drive before the American people? We request answers to these questions by Thursday, October 22nd at 5 p.m. So we'll see what happens. And again, there's the people that signed it. It's always nice. I kind of go through and look for my representatives. Unfortunately, not here. Well, one representative. And she's not there, but she's not on any of the committees that might deal with this. But still, I'm always a little disappointed in Jackie Walorski because she just doesn't put a lot out there. I mean, I know she's doing some things and that's not her expertise. But, you know, these are big, big issues facing the American people. And I think that all representatives should be weighing in on this. I really do. So I'm a little disappointed when she doesn't weigh in on such. She didn't even make comments about the impeachment. It was like, hello, are you out of touch with things or what? And I'm pretty sure she doesn't run her own Twitter feed, but still, whoever does, you need to get with the program. Okay, well, besides that issue, we also have the Senate Commerce Committee to hold hearing on Section 230 with CEOs of Twitter, Google, and Facebook. So, yes, they have been subpoenaed, and it's going to be for, I think, the same day. I think Wednesday, the 22nd is when it is. So, on Friday, they announced it was going to have a hearing, and there's the thing on the hearing. Let's see. Oh, Wednesday the 28th. That's when it's going to be. So a week after that. So we should be finding out some things there. And then I wanted to play a little bit of this with you because, again, we talk about the big tech censorship. It's real and it's a dangerous thing.
You know, look, this story stunk from the very beginning. But now the aftermath is Facebook and Twitter censored it. And anyone who shared it. Oh, you've spoken about the immunity these companies get. What is going on here?
Yeah, it's basically at this point, Laura, big tech versus democracy. I mean, that's what it is. These tech companies want to rig an election. They want to control what we read. They want to control journalists in this country. They want to control the news. And we just can't let them. And that's why I will be inviting and asking Facebook and Twitter to come testify under oath to my subcommittee in the United States Senate. The American people deserve answers. I've also asked the Federal Election Committee to open an investigation. You know, this looks like to me like an in-kind campaign contribution to the Biden campaign. I want to know what contacts did Twitter and Facebook and others have with the Biden campaign when they decided to start censoring this New York Post story on behalf of the Bidens. This thing just stinks. It reeks. And this is going to pull the lid off, I think, on just the corruption surrounding big tech.
Now, and Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, Senator, put out a statement earlier tonight saying our communication around our actions on the New York Post article was not great. And blocking URL sharing via tweet or DM with zero context as to why we're blocking, unacceptable. Well, that's not saying they're unblocking it, though, Senator, right? It's just saying that we needed to explain why we blocked it.
Yeah, you know, it's so insulting. I read that statement, and I was insulted by it. It insults the intelligence of every single American citizen. I mean, we're not stupid. We conceive that Twitter rushed to suppress this story, to censor it on behalf of the Bidens, just like Facebook rushed to do the same thing. Yeah, the fix is in. They want to rig the election and use their monopoly power, and we can't let them do it.
No. And the Senate has to act. You guys have to hold the Senate, and then that legislation has to move forward. Senator, great to see you tonight.
Okay, well, unfortunately, the Senate can only investigate and then make criminal referrals. So the Department of Justice is really going to have to step in. Definitely the FEC is going to have to do some things. So the Republican National Committee has sent a formal complaint against Twitter regarding in-kind corporate contributions for Biden for president. And so Stevenson is the head of the, Acting General Counsel, Office of General Counsel for the FEC. This letter constitutes a formal complaint filed under this law of Federal Election Campaign Act on behalf of the Republican National Committee based upon information and belief as set forth below in the attached materials. The RNC believes that Twitter Inc. respondent has violated FECA and the Commission's regulations by making corporate in-kind contributions to Biden for President Biden, the principal campaign committee for former Vice President Joe Biden. And so as of this filing, respondent is engaged in arguably the most brazen and unprecedented act of media suppression in this country's history, and is doing so for the clear purpose of supporting the Biden campaign. On October 14, 2020, the New York Post published the first of several articles revealing emails discovered on Hunter Biden's computer, which appear to portray corruption by Joe Biden and his son. In particular, the emails appear to show that Hunter Biden traded on then Vice President Biden's position in office to extract enormous fees from companies tied to the Chinese government and in Ukraine. In at least one instance, the emails indicate an equity stake for the big guy, a possible reference to Joe Biden himself. These emails suggest that Joe Biden repeatedly has lied in denying any knowledge of or involvement with Hunter Biden's activities. In response, respondent has taken unprecedented actions to suppress the articles from being shared on its platform. According to public reports, respondent has blocked users from sending tweets that include links to the articles. Respondent also suspended or locked the accounts of users who shared the articles or details about the articles, including the Trump campaign, the @TeamTrump, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, Republicans on the U.S. House Judiciary Committee, and Jake Sherman of Politico. Respondent took these actions before independent fact-checkers had even weighed in on the accuracy of the story. Democrat media consultants can only dream of such abilities. Through its ad hoc partisan suppression of media critical of Biden, respondent is making illegal corporate in-kind contributions as it provides unheard of media services for Joe Biden's campaign. And the analysis here: federal campaign finance law strictly prohibits corporations from making contributions to federal candidates. The term contribution is defined in relevant part to mean anything of value made by any person for the purpose of influencing an election, and includes in-kind contributions such as services. And so respondent suppression of the New York Post articles provides a thing of value, which is what they call it, a thing of value, to the Biden campaign. Respondent is acting as Biden's media operative, taking proactive steps to shield Biden from negative news coverage by blocking its distribution and muzzling those who try. If respondent charged for this service, Biden no doubt would gladly pay a significant price. And so respondents' actions have not occurred in a vacuum, but rather are in keeping with the company's open support for Joe Biden and hostility towards President Trump and other conservatives. A lot of hostility there. Respondents' feud with President Trump is well known, as are its frequent efforts to censor the president's tweets and the shadow banning of prominent Republicans and us little guys too, including RNC's chair, Ronna McDaniel, and several Republican members of Congress. Respondent CEO Jack Dorsey and other senior executives are prolific donors to the Democrat Party and other left-wing causes, with 98.7% of the company's total political contributions going to Democrats. In addition, there appears to be a revolving door between the Biden campaign and the company, with respondents' public policy director recently leaving to join the Biden transition team, and Senator Kamala Harris's former press secretary now serving as respondents' senior communications manager. Respondents' ham-handed attempts to justify its active media support as a result of nonpartisan corporate policy only illustrates the corporation's true partisan motives. Respondent has offered multiple explanations for its censoring of news reports that are damaging to the Biden campaign. Initially, Respondent claimed that sharing the articles was potentially harmful. Or that it violated rules against distributing hacked material. After these explanations were apparently deemed indefensible, Respondent then claimed the articles violated its policy on displaying private information. Oh gosh, they're just grasping at straws. For instance, when @Team Trump's account was locked, the on-screen explanation given was that the account had violated, quote, rules against posting private information. And the platform warned that, quote, you may not publish or post other people's private information without their express authorization and permission. Respondents' shifting explanations make clear that these public explanations are simply a pretense for its blatantly partisan election activity. The company's private information assertion is especially preposterous in light of its recent response to the New York Times reporting on President Trump's income tax returns, which were obtained in violation of federal law. To the best of our knowledge, Respondent took no action whatsoever to prevent the sharing of President Trump's personal information or numerous instances of outright lies and misinformation regarding President Trump and other Republicans. So, their prayer for relief: Respondent is a partisan actor run by partisan Democrats, which appears to be using its corporate resources to provide active support for Joe Biden's campaign in violation of federal law. The RNC therefore respectfully requests that the commission, 1, conduct an immediate investigation into Respondent's illegal in-kind contributions to the Biden campaign, 2, find reason to believe that the Respondent has violated this section of the law, and 3, impose the maximum penalty allowed under the law. It's too bad they can't get some kind of injunction to stop them from doing this. And, you know, the interference by these big tech companies is just outrageous. If we only knew what they're doing. And remember, the Robert Epstein, I have talked about him before. Dr. Robert Epstein is the one who has been studying the influence of these different tech companies. He specifically was dealing with Google and how much they could influence, and Facebook.
You testified before this committee that Google's manipulation of votes gave at least 2.6 million additional votes to Hillary Clinton in the year 2016. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I want to make sure I understand. You personally supported and voted for Hillary Clinton.
I was a very strong public supporter of Hillary Clinton, yes.
So you're not just dismayed that people voted for her, but your testimony is that Google is, through bias in search results, manipulating voters in a way they're not aware of.
On a massive scale. And what I'm saying is that I believe in democracy. I believe in the free and fair election more than I have any kind of allegiance to a candidate or a party.
And looking forward, if I understood your testimony correctly, you said in subsequent elections, Google and Facebook and Twitter and big tech's manipulation could manipulate as many as 15 million votes in a subsequent election?
In 2020, if all these companies are supporting the same candidate, there are 15 million votes on the line that can be shifted without people's knowledge and without leaving a paper trail for authorities to trace.
That's significant, folks. 2.6 million is significant because I believe Hillary only won the popular vote by 2.8 million. So, you know, that can be a definite breaker of it. So anyway, here was, again, his apology. His apology. But this has that article, it has the letter that they sent. And so they have filed this official complaint. Let's see what happens. You never know. Anyway, I just wanted to share a couple other things with you that Judicial Watch has a new study out. It finds that in 353 U.S. counties in 29 states, their voter registration exceeds the possible population. Maybe not the total population, but the adult population that would be eligible for voting. So it exceeds 100%. And it's just like, yeah, right. So 1.8 million extra registered voters. Kind of weird. And here were the states that they showed: Alaska, Colorado, Maine, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and Vermont. So, oh man, that is a lot of people. That could definitely be a game changer. So, you got to wonder about these people. And then this one, Eric Trump put this out, and I will tell you that it's not totally accurate because there were more than 7 people there. I believe this was a drive-in rally where the supporters were sitting in cars. And so there were more than 7 people there. But he has this great big teleprompter.
The United States Senate and expanding our majority in the House of Representatives. That's why we need to send Gary back to Washington, D.C.
Okay, now, somebody down here said, well, it was good the Patriots came along and were honking their horn to drown him out. No, those weren't Patriots. This was a car drive-in rally. So, yeah, there were more than 7, but yeah, he had to have his teleprompter. He really can't say any, well, of course, Barack Obama couldn't say anything once he got off the teleprompter. So, I don't know. Anyway, the last thing I want to leave with you is this. And evidently, the people in California have been going through all their elementary school names because they think that they need to get rid of the ones that are inappropriate school names. And one of them's named Dianne Feinstein Elementary. And yeah, her school name is about to be changed. Why? Because here's their criteria. Okay, well, she was the mayor of San Francisco for a while, so that's why her name was put on. And when they did that, they had to change something about it because at the time, I don't know where it says it somewhere. At the time, in order to name a school, it was not supposed to be after anybody who was still living. So they actually changed that policy just to name it after Diane. And then here's their criteria. Anyone directly involved in the colonization of people, slave owners or participants in enslavement, perpetrators of genocide or slavery, those who exploit workers or people, those who directly oppressed or abused women, children, queer or transgender people, those connected to any human rights or environmental abuses, those who are known racist and or white supremacists and or espoused racist beliefs. Well, you got to wonder where Diane fits in there. Well, here's the deal. The school made the list because as mayor in 1986, Feinstein reportedly replaced a vandalized Confederate flag, one of the several historic flags flying in front of City Hall at the time. So she replaced it. Oh, the horror of things. That just goes to show you. In 1986, that's what you did. It was a Confederate flag, but still, it was part of our history, so you replaced it. But no, not now, because that is a sin in these days. And so now her namesake elementary school is going to have its name changed. So sorry, Di-Fi, you lose out on that one. And then the last thing I just want to remind you of, with the smaller channels, we do need to stick together even more than ever now. So I want to do more of the shout outs to smaller channels. I just didn't have one pulled up for this one. But I will try to get that done in the next few videos. I'll try to give shout outs. It's just really important that we support those of us who are left. okay? And we try to build them up because we need each other. We really do. And everyone has their own role to play in what's happening right now. And some of us, it's like when you have a battle and your front line gets taken down, the rest of the soldiers have to step up and they have to take the place. So I think that's where we're at right now. And I hope a lot of the smaller channels can step it up as much as they can and get the word out there, because we still have so much truth that needs to be revealed to the public. So keep going, guys. Keep your chin up and encourage those smaller channels. If you comment on their videos, if you give them like a thumbs up, those things and viewing them will help move them up in the rankings so that people will tend to see them more. But then again, now that we don't have some of the bigger ones, some of the smaller ones might be feeling that. But, encourage them as much as you can, because we need all the smaller channels. They came for the big ones first. That doesn't mean they're going to stop coming after us. So we need to be prepared at all times. And again, if anything happens to me, remember, you can always go to my truthificationchronicles.com, and you can also check out Ergo_Supero on Twitter feed. You can also check out my Facebook page, and there's just a lot of places that you can go to check out and find out. I'm still looking into the possibilities of moving to Rumble. There are a lot of details I just have to wade through on that. And so anyway, that's what I wanted to present to you. Make sure that you understood that there will be information out there. My garden devotions, I would probably make an announcement on my garden devotions one to let you know what's up if I get taken down here. So kind of have that one as a backup maybe. I have a couple other channels I'm working on developing, but with everything that's happening right now, they're going very, very slowly, and I'm not able to do much on them, but I do want to get them going too, because, you can't just make it with one channel. You got to have a couple to be able to actually make ends meet. So that's my goal, but it takes a little while to get them to the point where they can be monetized and all that. So yeah, I'm trying to diversify to keep things out there, because I want to keep doing this as long as I can. So anyway, that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.